Hey guys, Rock and Robbo here with another episode of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2's Hero Colosseum, this time doing the first in the series of top 7 videos. You might be wondering why it's top 7 instead of top 10. Well, it's Dragon Ball, and let's face it, there's 7 Dragon Balls, just made sense to me. So this time I'm doing it on the top 7 figures that need fixing / reworking in the entire series. So with 320 figures to choose from, it was kind of hard in a way narrowing it down to just 7. The things I have excluded, Ns, Rs and to a degree SRs, were mostly ignored. I'm mainly focusing on the URs, which you expect to be the top figures in the game. So without further ado, we'll get on to the first in the list. At number 7, Goku Black. So one of the first figures, or sort of released in the original group of the Hero Colosseum figures. So this was base stats. I'm using what I will consider to be the better version of him. So okay attack, poor defense, poor speed, but that health stat was what made him incredible. He has, I think he still has the highest health stat of any figure. And he was such a beast when he first came out, because there was no figure that could easily sort of one-shot him, even with a counter-attack. So he was great at being a tank. His posing skill at the time, again, plus 750 if you're attack and minus 10% of damage dealt by attacker, and he had a couple of decent posing squares. Unfortunately, with the advent of new figures, Rose Goku Black came out, who doesn't have quite as much health, but he does more damage. He gets 1500 attack, 1500 to his speed, I believe, and a boost to his ultimate gauge damage if he is attacked. So there is no reason to run Goku Black with Rose Goku Black out there. So Goku Black definitely needs a rework. What would I do? You can either boost his stats a bit, which his defense and speed could definitely use it on this figure, or you change his posing skill, but he really does need some work because Rose made him absolutely worthless. At number 6, we have Android 16. So, on the sort of face of it, he looks like an interesting figure. Lowish health, alright attack, but good defense and some low speed, and what sounds like a good trigger square ability on paper. So, minus 700 defense to one random opponent, that's pretty good, and plus 250 attack to all allies if you go second. So, to be honest, at the time, a good figure to have, because slower decks have always been popular. You go second, 250 to all of their attacks. That's pretty awesome. Problem comes again with figures coming out later. So, for example, if you look at his trigger squares, that alone means that there are figures like Videl, who have the same trigger squares, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Bardock, who all are better than 16 in those trigger squares. Videl lowers speed and defense to the opponent, Goku adds some power to himself and a debuff to the opponent, and Bardock offers 250 attack and 160 defense to all allies. Plus, if you're below 50% of health on your master, he will make you only take half damage from attacks on your master. Now, why on earth would you run 16 when you have any of those 3 figures? And they're not the only 3 figures you could have there, there's plenty. So there's really no reason to run Android 16. How would you fix him? I think his ability would completely have to change, because the problem is he's so outclassed by Bardock especially. So whether you would make it minus 700 defense to all opponents and just make it all opponents in general, and just a flat 250 to all allies, maybe that would work, but it'd still be kind of hard to justify him. At number 5, we have the new Team Gohan figure. So on paper he sounds alright. He's basically a beefed up version of the original Team Gohan in a sense. Gets those sort of boosts if he's attacked, and he sort of gains extra attack from having Goku on the field for his ultimate. So sounds good on paper. The problem is with this Gohan figure, if you're going to get the most out of him, you need him being attacked, and it doesn't matter which figure you use. he's really not worth it because, okay, this Gohan, good health, decent defense. The problem is his attack is so low that even with a 30% boost to his ultimate attack damage, he's not really going to do much. And this problem with this one is, if he gets sneezed at, he's going to die because he has awful defense. Neither of these figures are particularly good, and Ninja Kitty, this is not the time. But could you fix this? Maybe. His stats are just really off for his ability, and it's very sort of, you've got to focus a deck around him, and it's not easy, especially when on those trigger squares you're talking about not having Gogeta, not having the new blue Goku. It's just ridiculous, really. So he does need some changes, and I need to turn my notifications off. So he really does need work, but he's certainly not as bad as some of the others on this list. At number 4, we have the original Future Trunks figure, possibly the original speed figure that everybody turned to at the time, with his plus 1000 to his own speed, and mine was 1000 to the speed of opponent who attacks you. So this figure, when it first came out, was great because it was hard to get speed figures at the time. There wasn't a lot to choose from, and this Future Trunks really sort of gave you that. Unfortunately now, with the fast characters you've got, especially when you combine them with the damage they can do, I mean, yes, this Speed Trunks is great, but you compare him to the new Future Trunks, okay, he's a UR instead, but it does more damage, he has decent speed as well, better than this. You've got the new Blue Vegeta with speed, it's just, he's completely sort of been pushed out of the game, and it's a shame because he was such a big part of it at the beginning, so I'd like to see a boost to him. You would probably have to just change his trigger skills, because I don't think you could boost his stats as an SR figure particularly. So maybe add minus 1000 to the speed of all opponents at least. At number 3 we have Omega Shenron. So this is actually from the latest update pack for the Hero Colosseum, which it was hard actually finding one out of this that I didn't like, but Omega Shenron is now, his posing skill is placed on a trigger square for 1500 to attack, and minus 300 to all hours. That's a good trigger score, I actually like that. It's very in keeping with his character, and it made him quite unique. But the problem is that so many of these other figures on this list has had, there are other figures that can do it better straight away. The new Blue Goku is much better than this. Yes, Omega Shenron might have an advantage depending upon the figure used in either speed or health or attack, but he is going to die in a second, and Blue Goku boosts the allies to his left and right, and it's the same middle trigger square. He really just doesn't work. Now, Omega Shenron is a bit of a harder one to try and fix because a lot of his problems lie in his stats rather than his ability. I would not change his posing skill. That is an awesome posing skill. The only way to probably buff him would be to maybe up his defense on the health figure and maybe boost his health a little bit on the other figure. His attack stats I've got no problems with because they kind of need to be low. Otherwise, if you can just keep him alive for 3 turns, who needs an 0-1 skiller? Because Omega Shenron will just blow you away. So that's why he gets number 3 on this list. At number 2 on the list, we have God of Destruction Beerus. Now, I did actually for a long time want to put Beerus at the number 1 slot in this, but he is still good. Not as good as he once was, but he's still decent. But in today's game, he has lost a lot of the effectiveness he once had. He was one of the original figures, and Beerus was the counter to the Whis Piccolo setup, because Beerus ignores defense, so he'd go straight at your master, hit you for like between 6 and 9k damage depending on abilities and counterattacks, and that was how he worked. That was his place in the meta. Unfortunately, with the advent of figures like Vados, all the others that reduce your attack, ones like Trunks that reduce how much damage you do to their master, Beerus really fell out because his attack isn't that great. That's the biggest problem he has in the meta nowadays. With your master at 25,000 health and you having to cut through figures with high health, it's very hard for Beerus to actually do that and show off what makes him so good. Like I say, he is still a good figure. He isn't out of the game completely yet. Although I think one more wave of good figures would be enough to kill him off completely. Considering right now we have Vegito, who can kind of do the same thing and maybe in some ways is a little better. But Beerus needs a rework. It's solely down to his attack stat for me. He needs to have more attack because you look at his trigger square, he's top right. Okay, what else can trigger on that side? We'll just go that side. You've got Vegito, who has more attack and in a couple turns time will do more even sort of with the opponent having decent defense. You've got the new Blue Vegeta, who is slow but has over 9,000 attack with his extra damage boost from his posing skill. That's the big problem with figures like Beerus. They were good, but now there's figures that do it better. So Beerus definitely needs work, but certainly not as much as our number 1 slot. And finally, at number 1, we have Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. You all knew this was coming. Anybody who's seen a recent video of mine knew that this was coming on the list. This figure, if you ignore its posing skill, just wipe that away for a minute. Don't look at that. Look at his stats. Those are some decent stats when you compare him to a lot. Great attack. Okay, his speed is mediocre, poor defense, and mediocre health. He could have such a big impact on the game. Then you look at his posing skill and think, oh my god, he is useless. Yes, 1.5 to your attack sounds awesome. He has over 10k attack. That is amazing. He could be a fantastic figure. But you get no defense and no speed. And that's where your problem lies. He gets sneezed on and he dies. He's slow and he has no defense to protect him. Even if you run him with fast characters, it doesn't matter because the health of a lot of figures now ensures that they will probably live even if he gets a counterattack on them. And then they will strike back, and even if they're weak, they will still kill him. And that's the big problem. Now, you could say, okay, run him as a backliner. Problem is, even with his great attack, you've got Ultra Instinct Goku that you could run as your backliner. You've got Blue Vegeta that could run as your backliner. You've got Blue Goku who could run as your backliner. You've got Jiren who could run as your backliner. There is no reason to use Vegeta over any of these figures. Now, how do you fix him? Well, I liked Unleashed's idea of basically leaving him his ability kind of the same with the attack boost, but you don't lose your defense and speed, and his trigger square is back middle. I kind of like that, but at the same time, again, is he really good enough? Does that make him good enough to pick? Maybe. His speed isn't bad when you've leveled him up, but I don't know. It's a hard one. It's just amazing to me that Super Saiyan 4 Goku can be so good and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta can be so bad. Admittedly, the posing skill does kind of make sense in terms of his character, but regardless of that, it's a poor figure, and it will always be a poor figure because he will never be fixed. So that's sad, but that's the way it is. And with that, the list is over. Thank you all for watching. If you've got any figures you think are particularly bad, leave them below and tell me about them. These were the top 7 I could find, but that doesn't mean there's only 7 to choose from. There are a few other figures that could easily have made this list. So tell me all about what you would pick, or whether you would change the order at all of which figures need fixing. But thank you all once again. If you want to see some more top 7 lists, please leave that in the comments below as well. I'd love to do more. I've got plenty of ideas for different topics to do. Thank you all one final time, and I'll see you all next time.